We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Tonight is it's Monday, January 27, 2025. This is a special session. We're going over the audit. Meeting's called to order. We'll do a roll call, please, Christian.
Trustee Fields.
Here.
Trustee Wagner. Here. Trustee Reister. Here. Trustee Cox. Trustee Kissinger.
Here.
President Pro Tem Keller.
Here.
President Frisbee.
Here. Any citizens wish to make any comments tonight? Do so now. We have an agenda in front of us. What is this council's desire?
So moved.
Support.
A motion to support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we have an agenda for the night. We have an audit presentation by Mr. Aaron Stevens. Good evening. Welcome. Thanks.
I was told this is the same presentation that I always give, so I'll try to move quickly. Just a couple of general comments. Our thanks to Michelle and Jim and the rest of the village staff, to Steve Breyer and his team from 60 Crandall. We know that we're a disruption to the routine, but we do appreciate everyone's help. What I plan to do is highlight what I think are the key areas of the report. I did not duplicate the financial statements, they're not in here, but I did pull some information out, some charts and graphs. As I said, it'll look pretty familiar if you've been here before, if you've heard me before. But if you have questions, stop me at any time, we can go through those. So I do. Do I have a clicker, or are you just going to click for me? All right. I'd like to remind everyone that the purpose or objective of an audit is to express opinions on the financial statements. The purpose of an audit is not to detect fraud or give you an opinion on your internal control. And that is because fraud detection, deterrence, and prevention, as well as sound internal control, are management responsibilities. If we do detect fraud, if we have recommendations on how to improve your internal control, we certainly would share that with you. It'd be in the form of a written report on internal control, but that report is a byproduct of the audit itself. The purpose of the audit is to express opinions on the financial statements. On page 2 of the bound report, your report on the financial statements, we have expressed what we refer to as unmodified opinions. And it doesn't actually use those words. It doesn't say unmodified opinions, but it does read, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. That is the important phrase, present fairly in all material respects. That is the unmodified opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that we can provide for a set of financial statements, and that's what you want to see as a council. To put that into some perspective, we could have issued a qualified opinion, and that might read something like, except for capital assets, the financial statements are fairly presented. An adverse opinion is exactly what it sounds like. It's when your financial statements are not fairly presented. And then the only other alternative that we have as auditors would be to disclaim an opinion altogether. We just couldn't audit your records. So of the options, you have what you're looking for in the unmodified opinions. In the 4th paragraph on page 2 of the report on the financial statements, we highlight that management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. That does include the internal control over that preparation and fair presentation. These financial statements are yours, not ours, not the auditors. They're Steve's. I'm just kidding. Steve does prepare, or his firm prepares the financial statements, and we express the opinions on them. So, in the 1st paragraph on page 3 of the report, our purpose or objective is to express opinions. What that means is that our audit is designed to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance that the financial statements are fairly presented, whether due to fraud or error, and then also to issue the auditor's report. So it is reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance. It's free from material misstatement and not all misstatement. And we do use those words intentionally because we don't look at every single transaction. We do make sample selections. We will test transactions. Based on the results of those tests, that determines our further audit procedures, the nature, timing, and extent of our audit procedures. Your report does include 2 sets of financial statements. You have government-wide financial statements, and there are fund-level financial statements. Government-wide financial statements are prepared on the full accrual basis of accounting, which means they primarily have a long-term perspective. But the thing about government-wide financial statements is they're only prepared once a year. The only time you see them is in that report on the financial statements, in the audit report. So most of my presentation is going to focus on the fund level, but I do have a couple of metrics that I like to look at from the government-wide financial statements. So the statement of net position is the first government-wide financial statement. It is a snapshot as of June 30, 2024, of your assets, your deferred outflows, your liabilities, deferred inflows, and the net of those numbers would be your net position. So a couple of metrics that I like to look at, one being the current ratio. It's where you take your current assets and divide it by current liabilities. That tells you your liquidity, how capable are you in paying your bills as they come due. So for the governmental activities, your current ratio is 5.7, and for the business type activities, 5.5. So you can cover your obligations more than 5 times over as of June 30th with your current assets. The other metric that I like to look at is more of a long-term metric, and we compare the unrestricted portion of your net position to your annual expenses, and that tells you how long you could operate before you needed to generate any additional revenue. In the case of governmental activities, it's almost half a year, and business type activities, it's almost a full year. We will dive deeper into the business type activities on the fund level basis, because what you see under business type activities on the government-wide statements are identical to your proprietary funds, so your water, your sewer, your golf. So we'll get into more detail in a couple slides here. The governmental funds financial statements are presented on pages 14 and 15. Governmental funds the financial statements are prepared on the current financial resources focus or model, and so there are no long-term items on the balance sheet, such as capital assets or long-term debt, net pension liability, and so forth. The fund level financial statement should be a more familiar presentation for you, because this is the level at which your budgets are prepared, and the reporting that you get throughout the year is done at the fund level. So the balance sheet for the governmental funds is presented on page 16. Once again, a snapshot of your assets, your liabilities, your deferred inflows, and the net of those three would be your fund balance, your equity for governmental funds. I tend to focus on the general fund as the operating fund for the village. Total fund balance is just over $2 million. That $2 million is then broken down into 5 potential categories or classifications, as you see in the middle of the slide there. But when we start to talk about how healthy is the general fund, I look at what you have available for future use. So of those 5 components or classifications, what's available is the assigned and unassigned portions. And I personally collectively refer to that as unrestricted, because you can assign an unassigned fund balance all day long. You make a budget amendment, you can change that assignment. So it's still available. It's just an assignment is management's designation on how to use that money. So as of June 30th, 2024, you had assigned fund balance for capital acquisitions of $426,000. You had another $60,000 assigned for pension reserve, and then you had unassigned fund balance of $1.3 million. Adding those up, the $1.8 million on the far right side of the slide there, $1.8 million in unrestricted fund balance compared to $4.2 million of expenditures for the year. So that $1.8 million represents 43% of your annual expenditures. In 2024, the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, recommends that you maintain a minimum fund balance in your general fund that is equal to 2 months of what they call normal operations. 2 out of 12 months is about 17%, but I'm going to say that your 43%, this was not a normal operations year. You've got a lot of capital outlay in there because of the building that you're in that you're not going to see next year. You're not going to have that year to year. So 43% even after those higher than normal expenditures, when the minimum recommendation is 17. So excellent financial condition. And the 17% is a minimum, it's not a maximum. So I wouldn't say you're too healthy. You know, sometimes you get that. You don't have that situation. You've been very fiscally responsible, built this building without borrowing. You're in excellent shape. On page 15, we have the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances for each of the governmental funds. Again, I'm going to focus on the general fund. Total revenue, about $2.8 million. That was an increase of $239,000 from 2023, so about a 9% increase. And primarily caused by, that increase was primarily caused by taxable values increasing, so property tax revenue was up. You had a better return on your investments. You got involved in my class, et cetera. So some reasons there for the increase in revenue. Your expenditures increased $1.8 million. So because of the capital outlay, about 76%, an increase of about 76%. up to the $4.2 million in expenditures. So the results for the year is you did use $1.4 million of your general fund balance, but it was planned. And actually, to give you a visual perspective, this slide here, a 5-year bar graph of your general fund revenues, expenditures, and total fund balance. So this does include all components of fund balance for the yellow bar there. And as you can see, you added to your fund balance in the first 4 years of that graph, and more than 4 years, if I went back a little further. And then you had significant capital outlay in 2024. It did reduce the fund balance, but again, at 43% of that, of those expenditures, that's excellent. On the next slide, a line graph of your unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. In terms of percentages, that brownish reddish bar at the, or line at the bottom is the 17%, and you can see the trend there with the blue line is the actual unrestricted fund balance. So again, it did decrease, but that was totally planned. It was budgeted for. It was in the long-term strategic plan for the village. On the next slide, it's the same information, just in terms of dollars instead of percentages. As you can see, that's 17% of your total expenditures, and it did jump up. The brown line did jump up, but that's not a normal year. So again, very stable, very healthy, very fiscally responsible. The pie chart on the next slide, this is the composition of your general fund revenue. Property taxes as a percentage was 69% of your total revenues. That was the same percentage as it was last year. Intergovernmental, which would include your state shared revenue or sales tax, at 21%. It was 23% in 2023, so very consistent with the prior year. On the expenditure side, this is where, again, we'll beat a dead horse here, but we saw some shifting here. Capital outlay at 58% for 2024. In 2023, it's 29%. Public safety at 20%, it was 32% in 2023. Public works at 9%, that was 15%. And then general government at 7%, that was 14%. So it shifted. It still has to add up to 100, but almost $2.5 million of capital outlay is going to change the look of that graph a little bit. So, all right. Then I said earlier we would touch on the proprietary funds, financial statements. Proprietary funds are prepared on a full accrual basis of accounting, just like government-wide financial statements are, but different than governmental funds. So again, long-term perspective under the full accrual basis of accounting, it is the same information as the business type activities, but it provides more detail because it's broken down by fund and it's a slightly different format, but the information is the same. So once again, we'll start with the snapshot. In this case, the statement of net position, so your balance sheet, if you will. As of June 30th, 2024, for the proprietary funds, you have assets, deferred outflows, which are a lot like assets, liabilities, deferred inflows, which are a lot like liabilities. The net of those four, in this case, is now net position, where it was fund balance for the governmental funds. Just to touch on a few metrics here, for the sewer fund, your net position could be broken down into three potential categories. You've got the amount that's invested in capital assets, net of any related debt. You've got restricted amounts, or could have restricted amounts, and then whatever is left is unrestricted. So here I compare the unrestricted net position to your operating expenses, but I do factor out depreciation expense because it's non-cash. So those are the calculations for each of the funds. So for the sewer fund, you're at 291%, water at 157%, and then the golf course at 28%. But being in the full accrual basis of accounting, we can't look at this the same way as we look at the general fund and say, well, 17% is our minimum. We've got almost 3 years worth of operations. You do have 291%, but in a proprietary fund or a full accrual fund, you want a higher fund balance because if you have to replace or repair the sewer system, it's expensive. So you want to cushion that with a higher unrestricted net position. And when you talk about what the appropriate amount of net position is, you not only have to factor in the operations, which is all the general fund considers, but you also have to factor in any debt service requirements, principal and interest payments, as well as your capital needs, and that's what I was referring to. The capital needs is probably the most subjective part of that calculation because you almost have to take your capital asset management plan and roll it into the budget and say, okay, our net position should be X number of dollars or X%, because we know we have this big project coming up.
And just for the council, that big project is the Sprinkle Road Sewer project.
So the bar graph here, this is just the net position, but it is broken down into the three categories for the sewer fund. And I just did this for a visual perspective. What you have available for use is just the green portion of that bar. The blue portion is the amount invested in capital assets net of any related debt. You can't spend it. You can't spend your sewer system. The restricted amounts are going to be restricted for any debt service requirements, in the bond resolutions or ordinances. So the available portion is the green portion. And it did increase slightly. It went from, $2,083,000 up to $2,147,000. So. On the next page, the 5-year trend of unrestricted net position as a percentage of operating expenses. Again, it dropped in '23 and then increased in '24. The drop in '23, not to go back to last year's presentation, but there were reasons. You had an increase in pension expense. There was a project on Spruce Lane. You had pump repairs and maintenance, and treatment costs increased by 20%. So you did rebound a bit from '23. Similar graph for the water fund. Again, you have the green portion is what you have available. It also increased $612,000 up to $662,000. Again, a positive year for the water fund. The line graph there, similar story. It decreased from 22 to 23 and then increased in 24. For the golf course, you don't have any restricted amounts here. You just have unrestricted in the amount that's invested in capital. So the orange portion is what you have available for future use. So total net position did increase, but the unrestricted amount decreased, and that is because you made capital asset investments of about $325,000. So when you do that, the blue portion increased. And as a result, the line graph looks a little different for the golf course fund, but still leaps and bounds from where you were when we first started doing the audit. So then, note 17 starts on page 39 of the bound report. And I sometimes refer to this as the Auditor Employment Act portion of my presentation. Note 17 talks about the upcoming accounting standards. I listed 4 on this slide, but you've already implemented GASB Statement 101. So the Governmental Accounting Standards Board is the standard-setting body. The GASB Statement 101 was on compensated absences. You've already implemented that, but it defined what a compensated absence is, and it does require an analysis of whether the leave, sick and vacation, what have you, is more likely than not to be used or otherwise paid out. If it's more likely than not to be used or otherwise paid out, you would have to record a liability in your full accrual financial statements. GASB Statement 102 is effective for the year that you're in now. On certain risk disclosures, it does require an assessment of whether a concentration or constraint makes the village, vulnerable to risk, events that could have an impact on the village, such as a particular vendor going out of business. So if you relied heavily on a particular vendor, they go out of business, you would disclose that in your notes to the financial statements. That's just an example. There are other examples as well. GASB Statement 103 on financial reporting model improvements. This one is effective for the year ending June 30, 2026. There are changes to be made to the management's discussion and analysis. There are changes on how unusual or infrequent items will be reported. Changes to the proprietary fund financial statement presentation, more of a formatting issue there. Reporting for major component units. You report your component units right on the face of the financial statement, so that's not really going to have an impact on you. And then budgetary comparison information. You currently have some options under GASB 34. You won't have those options under GASB 103, but it doesn't change what you're doing now. You already have opted that, the way that they're telling you you have to go. GASB Statement 104 is also effective for June 30, 2026 on the disclosure of certain capital assets. So with the recent accounting, accounting standards that have been implemented, the GASB's kind of created different types of intangible assets, right? You've got your lease assets, you've got your SBITAs, the leasing of software assets, you've got some other intangible assets. Well, what GASB Statement 104 requires is that those be broken out separately, disclosed separately. It can be one note disclosure, but you have to identify those new types of capital assets. But we have some time to prepare for that. So Steve and I will be working on that together. So I think that was quick, but I know how exciting audit presentations are for most people, so.
So council members have any questions either for Aaron? His team conducted the audit, and then Steve's team is with us on a monthly basis, so.
No, it's good to have deja vu. It's better in this environment than it is in the Super Bowl, so.
Right.
No, and we really, really appreciate it, Mr. Stevens and Mr. Breyer working so close with the team and of course, Michelle and Jim for putting together an audit and the information that's easy to read and flow, and it always works, and we're so pleased and proud of what is happening in this village. So is there any other questions for Mr. Stevens or Mr. Breyer? Well, you are getting very efficient at it.
I was gonna say, that was easy. So either it was really good, or nobody understood anything I said.
Really boring. I'd just like to say my lack of comments is a vote of confidence in that we've seen this presentation year after year.
Yeah.
The major talking points are the same. We're doing well. We're financially responsible. There's no errors or omissions that anyone's aware of. So it's good to have no comments.
Anything further? Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time for being here tonight and through the year.
I move to adjourn.
We have support.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion, meeting adjourned. Be back at 7 o'clock.
It's a work session. says 7 o'clock.
Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Good evening, Vicksburg. Tonight's Monday, January 27th, 2025. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take a quick moment of silence here to gather our thoughts. And Christian, we do a roll call, please?
Trustee Fields.
Here.
Trustee Kissinger. Here. Trustee Reister. Here. Trustee Wagner. Here. Trustee Cox. Here. President Pro Tem Keller.
Here.
President Frisbee.
Here. So we have an agenda in front of us. Jim, is there any changes or additions staff would like to make?
No, we're all good. On the copy when it was posted, we have 11C of the rebranding and website proposal that will be presented for council approval.
Any changes or additions by this council? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Approve as amended.
Second.
Motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Agenda carries. We have no scheduled appearances, and I see no public officials in the audience tonight. Time for citizens' comments, if anyone would like to address this council. Seeing none, I'll pass on any comments for the evening for later. We have a approval of our general consent agenda, the minutes of our regular council meeting, January 6, 2025, warrant reports, and events request, Brandon Atkins graduation party, Moton graduation, disc golf tournament. Is there any corrections or additions, comments to the agenda? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve our general consent agenda.
So moved. Support.
We have motion to support. We do a roll call, please, Christian?
Trustee Cox.
Yes.
Trustee Kissinger.
Yes.
Trustee Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Fields.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
President Pro Tem Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. So we have some action items in front of us tonight. We have 23-24 full-year audit approval. Staff is recommending motion and support and approval and acceptance of our 23-24 full year that was presented earlier at our work session.
So moved.
Support.
We have motion and support. We do a roll call, please, Kristen?
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
Trustee Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Cox.
Yes.
Trustee Kissinger.
Yes.
Trustee Fields.
Yes.
President Pro Tem Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Well done. Motion carries. So we'll have Jim talk to yearly budgeting software.
Yes, we've been looking at bringing in software, professional governmental software program that will aid not only in budget presentations, but also create a situation we believe that would be a key aspect of a smooth transition, regardless of the financial team looking at it. Our recommendation is ClearGov. We currently use one of their modules in our Transparency Center. We received a prorated, and we were actually the first municipality in the state of Michigan to bring in the Transparency Center from ClearGov, and they've expanded quite a bit within our state. So they, first year would be a setup fee of $4,680, and then a prorated, because we'd want to use it immediately to start creating the 25-26 fiscal year budget at just a little over $4,500. And then it will be 3 years subsequent to that, that the total year price would be $11,000 with a cap that there would not, it would be $11,000 on July 1st of 2025 to prep the subsequent fiscal year budget, and it will not increase more than 3% in the 2 subsequent years. So this would get us through the 28-29 fiscal year. It will be in, once you see it, I think you'll appreciate it. It's a little bit above just the Word documents and Excel type presentation that we've been used to, and will also help continue a trend analysis and be something that the village, I think, will be using yearly for quite a long time. So it's our recommendation for a motion and support to approve me entering into the contract for this initial prorate, the setup fee, the initial prorated year, and then a 3-year contract. So it'll actually go the next 4 fiscal years to begin using. So, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So moved.
Support.
There's time for discussion.
Jim, does this take the place of BSNA, or is this in conjunction with?
No, yeah, it would be outside of just strictly to create a budget presentation, a budget booklet that then we'd have available on our website for anyone to view in that. So it would, we know the data from BSNA will be able to be imported into this system, but it does not replace it.
So our residents will be able to go to the webpage and look into it and see our budget and their
Correct.
planning. And
Yep.
any further comments or discussions of staff?
So if we were first for the transparency module, are we first for this as well for a government our size?
We're not, but we are happy as this module is normally about $24,000, so
Okay.
we were able to, we feel, get an incredibly fair investment price for it.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
The Kalamazoo County uses this module, multiple others in southwest Michigan and across the state. But the closest one's Kalamazoo County.
Any further questions? We have motion and support. We'll do a roll call, please, Kristen.
Trustee Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Cox.
Yes.
Trustee Fields.
Yes.
Trustee Kissinger.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
President Pro Tem Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Motion carries. So we have 11C, rebranding.
Yeah, we in December, we had posted a 30-day RFP requesting proposals for a rebranding and website and kind of a wider, deeper look at the branding of Vicksburg as we move into the future. So more than logo, letterheads, that type of design. We had 4 companies submit bids, narrowed those to 2. Had Christian and Trustee Fields and Jackie Coney sat in those interviews with those 2 companies, and through that, here tonight, recommending that approval is given to myself to enter a contract with the Image Shop out of Grand Rapids. The first year is $24,000 because that's front-end heavy, especially on the rebranding side. And Christian has this, but the first year would be the brand strategy and development, so it's coming with a work session with the council to elicit your guys' thoughts and opinions of what sets the village, what makes it unique, and how we develop a brand identity and messaging through that process. The website standalone is $12,000 of the $24,000 the first year, and then in subsequent years, so basically it's $2,000 a month in year 1, $500 a month in years 2 and 3 to continue that work. But we just feel it is a time to truly look at the branding of the village. So be happy to answer any questions, or Trustee Fields sat in those interviews as well, so.
Well, we have a request of staff to enter into an agreement with the Image Shop for $24,000. What's this council's desire?
So moved.
Second.
We have further discussion. Now it's time to ask Jim about it. If I can ask when they're going to redevelop our webpage as well?
Yeah, it'll be a completely brand-new webpage, and so,
I know
we're
we've
looking
had
forward to
history
that.
with the image shop. What has been your
They've
working
been
relationship with them?
great, especially on responsive, I'll say, service from them. They've put together a few of our standalone pages for events. They also have other clients here in the village. They're very familiar with the village. They have been involved with those different companies for the past 5, 6, 7 years. So they've seen what the village has kind of grown into. So, but
And thank you for inviting me to sit in on those. The two final candidates that came down to it, both were really strong, brought some really good things to the table. In the end, the image shop really had the whole package. I've been in marketing, done brands through my work side, and redid websites. The image shop has everything I think that's really needed to work with us to develop the brand of Vicksburg. I think it's going to be a really exciting project. It's a chance to really, kind of put out there and show everybody who we are, what we're doing, where we're going. And then just from my experience on the current website and then talking to other people in our community, everybody knows our current website is a little clunky, difficult to navigate, and we looked at some things, and I think this is going to be just a great move for all of it, the website and the brand.
You talked about a work session, how soon would they be looking to initialize that?
we'll hopefully here in February have a kickoff meeting with staff and then come out with a timeline. I envision though that I'd be happy if the website was up and functioning in the September-October timeframe. But
I think this is really exciting too, because I've had some people in the community say things to me about our website and how difficult it was to use. And so I'm really excited about this. I think it will really improve what we have to offer.
Jim, you mentioned year one for the front heavy, and then the cost per that, and then the year after that, the 500. Did you mention like a time frame, or is that just until we stop utilizing their service?
the proposal is a 3-year contract
Okay.
with mutually agreed upon additional 3 years. So it could go 6, but it would have to be agreed upon both from them and the village at that time.
I know we're kind of at a 30,000-foot view right now, but could we ask if we could embed like our meetings right on the website? So yeah, they still run through YouTube, but a link that they can click and it'll open up.
Yeah, that's part of the goal.
Awesome.
Very,
And
very simplistic.
I did just look, lovetheberg.com is still available.
There we go.
No .com.
Might not be after that public announcement.
No, right?
Yeah, shoot.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Well, hearing none, we have a motion and support, so we'll do a roll call, please, Christian.
Trustee Wagner,
Yes.
Trustee Fields,
Yes?
Trustee Kissinger. Yes. Trustee Reister,
Yes.
Trustee Cox,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Keller,
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Welcome to the 21st century. This is going to be fun. So Mr. Mallory's got a report on our Iceberg Festival.
Yeah, real quick, email be going out tomorrow. We've kind of really narrowed down. We have 2 large tents right around Oswald Park. Be a soup contest with our food establishments, and then the coffee houses in town, coffee and hot chocolate will be contest number 2, and potentially contest number 3 will be a dessert from those coffee shops. We'll finalize that all hopefully via email within the next week. 9 ice sculptures were selected and purchased a month ago, so we could make sure we had the timing of it. And there's incredible, the retail stores in town have about all of them, I think, have come up with different specials that they're going to offer that day. So Saturday, February 22nd will be certainly a time to be in the Berg. So like I said, it's going to be 12 to 4 around Oswald Park. And there will be in 107 a band playing from 3:30 to 5:30. I think it's from 12 to 4 down at the Vicksburg Makers Market. There'll also be some folk music going in that building, but we'll be rolling out a lot of information here in the next 10, 12 days for sure. Our next meeting on that is next Monday morning, so.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah. Then a couple things. February 3rd's meeting will have a resolution reference the Goose Roundup activity again. The state has restricted some, but we think it's a good investment to keep moving on Sunset Lake. And February 17th, we should be in a position to recommend the Parks and Rec RFP with the 3 trustees, Fields, Jessica, and Chad. I'll be sending them the copies of that tomorrow as well. That's all prepped to go, and then we'll meet and talk about interviews. But we should be in a position to recommend that company February 17th. Internally staffed, we did RFP out downtown plan, and we did not get multiple bidders on that, so we're going to look at the wording of that RFP, talk to the Planning Commission and DDA at next Monday's or 2 Mondays from now, their meeting. And our recommendation is going to be to put out a new RFP to solicit more and do a better job or wider in contacting companies and clarifying what our goals and expectations are, and hopefully receive additional people sending proposals on that, so.
Thank you, Jim. So I think we just have a couple of committee reports tonight. One of it,
I do have, the tree committee is going to be meeting on February 26th to get started for the spring.
all right. Planning Commission.
Planning Commission had Jackie Coney kind of talk to us about redevelopment readiness, so that will be coming to council in the coming months as we look to kind of gear toward that. What's the acronym for that, Jim? I can never remember.
Redevelopment ready community. And I think,
RRC.
and I said February 17th, but that's a federal holiday, so our actual council meeting's February 24th, when that Parks and Rec plan would be put in front of you.
And we had an update on the fire board.
Yes, we did. We met on the 15th, week and a half ago. Actually had a pretty full house, which I think didn't shock some of us. It did shock some of the other people. Channel 3 was there. Big thing that came out of it was Brady Township kind of clarified their position a little bit better on what was going on. They did vote 7-0 unanimous, as well as Pavilion voted 7-0 unanimous to join into a joint operating agreement, for lack of a better term. So they still have details to work out. It's a notice of understanding, basically, or a memo of understanding. So they're trying to get some details hammered out. Basically, Brady has until the end of March to either be a go or no-go. So my thought is that probably by the March meeting, they will officially announce that they are going to be leaving the authority. Having said that, there's been a lot of talk in the community. I know Jim was at our Lions Club meeting a couple weeks ago and was asked about it, and then after he left, that's when a lot of the questions came out because they waited for him to leave. So I'm I'm letting residents be assured that nothing's going to change until April 1st of 2026. The current authority as it is will still be in place until April 1st of 2026. But anybody that is in the village of Vicksburg, that is in Brady Township, as myself is, we will be serviced out of the fire authority, that nothing will change in that. The only thing that will change is if you live outside the village in Brady Township and you have an emergency at your home, Pavilion is going to roll on that. Doesn't mean that the fire authority won't back them up in some respect, but that'll be the change. People that live in Waukesha Township, if there's an issue, the fire authority will roll just like they currently do. That will not change. We are going to be looking at new legal counsel. We've instructed the administrator to get some firms together that have no connection with any of the entities on the authority, because the current attorney has relations with at least 2 of the entities on the board. So we deemed it proper that we should get somebody that has no connection with anybody, because there's going to be a lot of questions coming up in the next year. So that we're going to be working on that. Also, planning and work sessions, such as we had here earlier. We are suggesting highly that we maybe schedule those maybe once a quarter at least, to try to check progress where we're at, because there's going to be a lot of things coming up in the next year. And unfortunately, that year is going to come very quickly. Strategic planning, we're also kicking the tires on, similar to what we had this last Saturday. And so we're going to pursue that a little bit more fully. So
The one, February 3rd, we'll have the fire budget presentation for this council to approve.
thank you.
Amen. Thanks, Carl. So it's time for citizens' comments. If anyone would like to make a comment to this council, please do so. Mr. Mayor? Yes, sir.
What's the situation on Washington Street?
What situation is on Washington?
You were cutting it off at Mill Street.
No,
That changed?
the design with the drain commissioner, we relayed to him that we did not want Washington Street cut off, so they've created a new design structure. I won't say new, but they created a structure that Washington Street will remain there as a two-way thoroughfare through the village.
I couldn't get to you that night, and Julie and a couple other people
Oh.
went there. I got tied up.
Yeah.
But, anyway, I hadn't found anything out yet on it. I'm glad that you're keeping it open.
Yes, it will be a street.
All right.
That's our plan, sir. So we'll start with trustees time. Trustee Cox.
Thank you for this evening. I don't have anything to offer right now.
Trustee Kissinger.
I think we had a good strategic planning session over the weekend on Saturday, and I look forward to kind of like working on that plan that we kind of put together as a team.
Thanks. Trustee Fields.
I'll agree with Trustee Kissinger. I think that the strategic planning session was very productive. I think we have a lot of good things coming up with that, with the branding, the new website, already starting some of the events for 2025 with the Iceberg Festival. I think all in all, it's going to be a great 2025 in the Berg.
Trustee Wagner.
Well, for the iceberg, I didn't get a chance during Manager Mallory's comments, but thank you to staff and those highly committed community partners that are continuing to invest their time and resources in Vicksburg for the betterment of everybody to keep putting on events like this and draw people down. Without that sort of investment, we are not the village we want to be. So I'm just very grateful to continue to see that roll forward and have that event coming back for us. So looking forward to it quite a bit.
Thanks, Ryan. Trustee Reister.
I'm all set, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just ditto what you all have said about the strategy session. I'm very. Do you do that on purpose? I'm not even gone. See, I got Mr. Kissinger right this time, so.
You can't do both.
Well, it's because it's his right hand. He doesn't
No, go ahead.
May I claim my time, Mr. President?
So moved.
I want to thank staff for all that you did with the budget, or the audit, I'm sorry. You know, I've been on the council now 6 years, and from where we were when I came on the council till now, it's night and day difference. I mean, I know Jim's worked very hard along with the rest of the staff having no comments. I wish other entities that function as governmental boards did the same, but that's another story. I do want to thank all the council members for being at the work session on Saturday. It meant a lot. And I'm just sorry that Jimmy Myers talked his head off so much that we couldn't get a word in edgewise. So other than that, thanks.
Thank you, Carl. And as you all were saying that, I'm very proud of what we have accomplished, what this group has accomplished, and your input. You know, we've got a lot of varying ideas that came to the table during that strategy session. It's taken us in the right path. And to what Ryan said, we've got phenomenal volunteers in this community that make it happen. Thank you all for that. And Jim and staff, Michelle, the audit report. You know, Mr. Stevens thinks it's kind of boring, but the more boring it is, the more exciting it is, because that means we're doing things right. And so congratulations on the audit. We're all quite proud of what this community's accomplished, what the staff has done for us. And Carl, even though I forget you at times, I won't forget you in my prayers tonight with your knee surgery coming up. So he won't be at our next meeting, as he'll be recuperating, so Godspeed with that. And barring any other comments, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.